Sairam everyone, and welcome back to our political science class. Today we'll be doing some revision of our lesson electoral politics, which is there for your exam, that is your periodic test. Let us do a small summary. Okay, electoral politics this chapter describes the importance of election in a democratic country. It gives information on how the representatives are elected, how election takes place, and also it tells us about importance of election. It also describes election process of our country, right? Now this chapter starts with a small story about the Haryana elections which were held in Haryana. The state of Haryana was ruled by Congress from 1982 to 1986. But people were unhappy with the ruling government. Lokdal was the opposition party and Chaudhary Devilal was the leader of this party. Devilal joined hands with other opposition party. Devilal made a promise, during this election campaigning, he made a promise to the people. He said that if his party wins the election, if his party won the election, then his government would waive off the loans of farmer and smaller businessmen. Devilal's promise made to the people, made the people vote overwhelmingly in favor of Devilal's party, that is Lokdal and its allies. In the state assembly election, the latter won the seats, 76 seats out of 90 seats. Devilal was the new chief minister of Haryana. But things changed. In 1991 election, Congress again won the election and came into rule. Okay, children? Now, let's take up the new topic over here. Why do we need elections? Is it important? Now, an election is a mechanism adopted almost by 100 countries by which, by these elections, people elect their representatives at regular intervals and change them whenever they want to. If the people are not happy with their leader, with the party, elections are conducted again. It is an important task that has to take place regularly in a democracy to choose representatives as per people's choice. Now, the choices made by the voters during an election are: voters can choose who can make law for them. Voters can choose the government and the body that will make major decisions. Voters can choose the party whose policy will direct the government in lawmaking. Now let's see the next topic, that is what makes an election democratic. As we know, an election is a procedure by which people select their candidate in a representative democracy or other forms of government. Representatives are elected by the citizens in national elections for the national legislature. Elected representatives further possesses the authority to choose other representatives like you can say presidents, other representatives, president or other officer of the government like the prime minister and the council of ministers. Okay, they get the authority to select them. Now, the bare minimum criteria for conducting a democratic elections are very important. Voters, okay, can choose who can make laws for them. Everyone should be allowed to choose their own representatives. The voters should be offered real choice by the parties and candidates that are free to contest elections. Then periodic elections must be held after every few years. It can be 5 years or earlier also if the people are not happy. The selected candidate must be of people's preferences. A free and fair manner of election must be conducted where people can choose as they wish to. It is good to have political competition. Whether it is good to have, it's a big question. Can we have this political competition? See, political competitions in election takes various forms. Several candidates of different political backgrounds compete at constituency level. Am I right? Political competition is good for the following reasons. We'll see why it is good. First is it provides incentives to political parties and also the leaders. Raising issues of public concern help political parties to win. Whereas, if failing to do so, the expected work makes them party lose the next election. Fair election forces political parties to serve the people, and despite, they have to serve the people despite their power hunger, because they want to come into power. Let's move on to our next topic, that is, what is our system of election? Okay, we are talking about our country, India. In India, after every 5 years, the term of all the elected members come to an end, and elections are held for Lok Sabha and also for Vidhan Sabha, that is the assembly. General elections in all constituencies are held on the same day or within a few days. Let's see what is by-elections. By-elections are held in some constituencies pertaining to the death or resignation of existing members. This is by-elections. What is general elections? General elections is nothing but in all constituencies. Elections are held on the same day or within a few days. That is general election. Okay, let us move further now. Let's talk about electoral constituency. Okay, India is divided into different electoral constituencies where the voters living in an area elect their representatives. Lok Sabha elections. India is divided into 543 constituencies for Lok Sabha elections, and each elected representative is called as the Member of Parliament. We also call them MP in short. Let's talk about the Vidhan Sabha elections. Each parliamentary constituency has several assembly constituencies from each state whose elected representatives are called Member of Legislative Assembly. In short, they are called as MLA. Then Panchayat and municipal elections. A town or village is divided into several smaller wards where a member of the urban, or you can say the village local body, is elected for each constituency, and that elected representative represents one seat in the assembly. Then we will talk about the reserved constituencies. Some constituencies in Lok Sabha are reserved for the people belonging to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Let us talk about the scheduled tribes, reserved constituencies. Someone who belongs to the scheduled caste community can stand for election for this 84 seats. Now we'll talk about scheduled tribes, reserved constituencies. 47 seats are reserved for someone from the scheduled tribe community to stand to contest the election. In certain states, seats for other backward classes, that is OBC, and women candidates are reserved in the rural, that is the panchayat, and in the urban election, that is the municipal municipalities and corporation elections. Okay, now let's talk about the voter lists. In a democratic election, an electoral roll, which is the list of those who are eligible, okay, to cast their vote. Okay, a list is prepared of those eligible voters much before election, and this list is called as the voters list. Okay, then elections in India follow the policy of universal adult franchise. I'm sure you know what it is. Any citizen who is 18 and above has the right to cast their votes. This means that everyone should have one vote and each vote should have equal value. No denial of the right to vote without a good reason is acceptable in the Indian democracy. Right, children? Citizens, irrespective of their wealth, of their educational status, deserve an equal right in decisions that affect them. Don't forget this, very important. Okay, let's move further. It is the responsibility of the government to arrange the eligible voters' names and distribute the election photo identity card, EPIC. That is full form of EPIC is election photo identity card, is the ultimate requirement for the voters' proof identity in the booth where they go to cast their votes. Sometimes even ration cards or the driving license may serve the purpose. Okay, here it is. We'll start with again nomination of candidates. How the candidates are nominated for elections. See, children, any voter of minimum 25 years of age can also become a candidate in election. He can contest election. And in order to contest election, one must fulfill a nomination form. Okay, one should fill out a nomination form and a security deposit, some amount of said amount they have to give. Now, for the voters to make a fair decision, the candidates has to make a public declaration of any serious criminal cases pending against himself if he is a male or herself if the candidate is female. Details of his own or his family's assets and liabilities should be declared. His or her educational qualification should also be declared to the public. Election campaign. Free and open discussion about the eligibility of the representative in town. Which party will make better government is carried out in election campaigns. This campaigning takes place for 2-week period between the broadcast of the final list of the candidates and the date of polling. Candidates, they start campaigning. In this campaigning, the candidate, what they do, they contact the voters. These political leaders deal with election meetings. A lot of meetings are carried out. and the political parties, they mobilize their supporter. They organize the cohorts. Okay. As per Indian election law, there's some restriction put on the candidates and the party. As per the election law, no party or candidate can bribe or threaten the voters to vote to their party or their candidate. Also, seek vote in the name of religion or caste. They cannot use government resources for election campaigns or spend more than a set amount, okay, in a constituency for Lok Sabha elections. The set amount for Lok Sabha election is 25 lakhs. Okay, or in a constituency in an assembly election is 10 lakhs. So if they are spending more than this set amount, they are punished by the court. Okay, failing to follow the above may lead to rejection of the party in the election by the court. Remember this. Now, all the political parties, they must agree on model code of conduct designed for the election campaigns, according to which no candidate or party can use any place of worship for election propaganda. Then they cannot use government vehicles, aircrafts and officials for elections. Now, after the announcement, this is very important for the candidate. Now, after the dates are announced of the election, ministers shall not take any big and drastic policy decision or make any promises to the public for providing facilities or lay the foundation stone of any new project. In case they are doing so, they will be punished by the court of law. Let's talk about the next point, that is the polling and counting of votes. Now elections are conducted, campaigning is done. Now the day of election, people go and cast their vote. On the election day, the voters, they cast or poll their vote. Voters with their name in the voting list, they can go to the polling booth and they can cast their vote to the whichever candidate they wish to. Okay. Now, on identification, when they go to the booth, an identification matching is done by the election officials. Okay, any epic they have to produce, show to the officers. A mark is put on the voter's finger and he or she is allowed to vote. A representative of each candidate is allowed to sit inside the polling booth to ensure fair election. And who are this they call? They're called as polling agents. Children, earlier, a few years before, paper ballots were used, and this paper ballot was containing the names of all the contesting candidates along with their listed party names, and symbols was also used. Okay, and counting was done manually. But nowadays we have electronic voting machines, which are also called as EVM. Okay, I showed you this picture of EVM also. Okay, EVM are used to record votes. Okay, the machine has individual buttons besides the names of the candidate and the party symbol. What the voter has to do? When he will go, he has to first produce the identification if it is proper. Then he will be put one marking will be done, okay, on his finger, okay, and then he can go and cast his vote. The voter has to press the button of his choice. Now children, the EVMs are sealed properly, okay, and they are taken to a secure place once the voting is over. After a few days later, on a fixed date, you can say, the EVMs are opened to count the votes. The candidate who receives the highest number of votes from a constituency is elected this way. Okay, this is the process. Now let's talk about our country. What makes elections in India democracy? And the first reason is Independent Election Commission. Children, the Election Commission, under the supervision of Chief Election Commissioner, who is appointed by the President of India, has a wide range of powers to conduct elections. Election Commission are the ones who conduct elections. Decision on conduct and control of elections from right the announcement to the declaration of results. All the decisions are taken by the Election Commission. It punishes also, it has powers, as I told you. It punishes the party violating the code of conduct implemented by it. During elections, during this election times, the commission can ask the government to follow certain guidelines. Guidelines such as avoiding the use and misuse of its power, the government who is in power function, okay, or to brighten they'll misuse their power to brighten their chances to win votes or transfer some government officials, okay. Government officials, this again I'm telling you, this government officials on the election day, they are given duty and they have to work under the control of election commission and not for the government. Popular participation, the participation of the people. Now, this popular participation is the second point, second reason why the Indian elections are said to be democratic. Okay, now the participation of the people, it regulates the quality of election process. It is measured by voters turnout figure. This determines the percent of eligible voters who actually cast their votes. The notion of bringing pressure through elections on political parties to adopt favorable policy is highly prevalent in commoners of India. But with time, the voters' interest in election related activities has been increasing. Our third point is acceptance of election outcome. Now, this is the third reason. The outcome of the election is the final, test of a free and fair elections. Both at the national and the state level, the ruling parties routinely lose election. Okay, in India, that we saw in the beginning of the lesson when I told you about the Haryana assembly elections, right? In India, about half of the sitting MPs and MLAs lose election. Unlike that in US, where such candidates rarely lose the elections. Candidates who buy votes or have criminal connections often lose elections in India. Apart from a few disputed elections, the defeated party accept the electoral outcome as the people's choice. Children, I think so. I have just highlighted some important points from this lesson. You got to be thorough with your textbook. Read your textbooks. I'll stop here right now in this class. All the best. See you soon.